So on Friday, the European Central Bank, or ECB, made a surprise announcement. And they announced, and I have the Reuters article here, that they have ditched European central banks have ditched a 20-year-old agreement to coordinate their gold sales, saying that they have no plan to sell large amounts of the physical metal anymore. The European Central Bank announced on Friday. The central bank gold agreement was originally signed in 1999 to coordinate gold sales by the various central banks and help stabilize the market for the precious metal. Yeah, that's the propaganda BS narrative there. It was meant to dump. Remember, that was like Gordon Brown's bottom and other selling, where European banks were dumping metal at the very bottom of the market. So, quote, the signatories confirmed that gold remains an important element of global monetary reserves as it continues to provide asset diversification benefits, and none of them currently has plans to sell significant amounts of gold, end quote, the ECB said in a statement. So that is it for this short little that is it for the Reuters article. My analysis of this, though, is very interesting. I think this is very good news for gold. And we have seen evidence now for the last couple years that central banks, especially, and governments in Europe, especially governments like Russia and their central bank, and many Eastern European governments have been stockpiling, adding to gold reserves a lot more. I believe that Poland bought an enormous amount of gold earlier this year. They bought like an insane amount of gold, over 100 tons of gold. So from a historical perspective, you guys know that I like financial history. I think this is actually quite similar to the London Gold Pool and how the London Gold Pool ended. So if you're not familiar with the London Gold Pool, let me just give you a brief history lesson. So this is from the Wikipedia page. Shockingly, they actually have something on there about the London Gold Pool. The London Gold Pool was the pooling of gold reserves by a group of 8 central banks in the United States and 7 European countries that agreed on the 1st of November 1961 to coordinate in maintaining the Bretton Woods system of fixed-rate convertible currencies and defending a gold price of $35 per troy ounce by interventions in the London gold market. The central banks coordinated concerted methods of gold sales to balance spikes in the market price of gold as determined by the London morning gold fixing while buying gold on price weaknesses. The United States provided 50% of the required gold supply for sale. The price controls were successful for 6 years until the system became no longer workable. The pegged price of gold was too low, and after runs on gold and governments, which they didn't add here, governments were drastically inflating their currencies. They were going crazy with money and credit and in debt up to their eyeballs after World War II. The British pound and the US dollar occurred. The peg price of gold was too low, and after runs on gold, the British pound and the US dollar occurred. France decided to withdraw from the pool. The London Gold Pool collapsed in March of 1968, and I believe President Richard Nixon completely closed the gold window and the international gold standard. I think it was 1971. He interrupted a popular TV show back then and gave a speech, and the claim was that it would only be temporary. Milton Friedman said it best, that there's nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. So the temporary suspension of the gold standard has been going on for, over 4 decades. The London Gold Pool controls were followed with an effort to suppress the gold price with a 2-tier system of official exchange and open market transactions, but this gold window collapsed in 1971 with the Nixon shock and resulted in the onset of the gold bull market, which saw the price of gold appreciate rapidly up to $850 an ounce in 1980. So there's more about the London Gold Pool in the Wikipedia article if you want to read it. Also, I want to give a shout out to Dmitry Speck. He wrote this book in 2013 called The Gold Cartel, Government Intervention on Gold, the Mega Bubble in Paper, and What This Means for Your Future. And according to his sources, and he's a European working in the financial industry for many years and a fan of gold, and he said that when the gold price was going crazy up to 1900, it was gold sales and interventions and basically complaints and panics by politicians in Europe that made manipulation of the gold price increase to knock it back down. Because remember, we had craziness in Greece around that point. Things were getting really bad in Greece in 2011. That was 2 years before Cyprus, but the U.S. also had a credit downgrade. So overall, I think this is good long-term news for gold. It was obvious that I didn't necessarily know about the agreement, but it doesn't really matter because, like I said, the central banks, especially Russia and a lot of Eastern European central banks, were accumulating a lot of physical gold anyway. So of course they're not going to want to dump their gold. They're going to want to add reserves to their gold. Because look, I just talked about this yesterday. These central bankers and these governments behind closed doors in the highest level, top secret IMF meetings, World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, they are well aware that at least $65 trillion of fiat currency and credit, most likely a lot more than that, but it is very difficult to prove the real number. The real number could be over 100 trillion, but again, you can't prove it. You have to see the document. You would have to be access to very high level information to have to be with confidence to know that that number is higher, with all the secret backdoor bailouts, covert quantitative easing, emergency liquidity programs, all these things. So, looks like very similar to the London gold pool ended, that the European governments no longer want to sell their gold. They are in accumulation mode, except for the most indebted countries in the European Union. That is another story. So, in the long term, I think this is good news for gold. In short term, anything can happen. Long term, basically, these European governments that were involved in this agreement have decided they do not want to sell their gold anymore. So that is good. That means less physical metal for paper price manipulation, because physical metal is still required for paper price manipulation. So if these governments that agreed to pool their gold, similar to the London gold pool, that lasted for about 7 years, have decided that they do not want to pool their gold to sell, then, I think it's very good long term. So I would, historical comparison, compare this to the London gold pool ending. Did I hear that Eric Sprott is reporting Poland bought 100 tons of silver and wants delivery? I heard some mention of that. I think Poland was buying physical gold too, so it doesn't surprise me. I think that Sprott, their physical silver trust, tried to buy, it was over $10 million worth of physical silver, and the COMEX warehouses obviously claim that they had the metal, but they had to wait, I think, more than 6 months for the delivery of the metal. So, they get away with all that stuff, guys. It's messed up. So the COMEX warehouses claim that they have all this physical metal, and then if you make a large order, you're still told, well, you either can take cash or a premium on your cash settlement, or you have to wait a long time for your physical delivery, and they get away with it. And then if there's more problems in the manipulated markets like that, they can change the rules. Look what happened to the Hunt brothers. So long term, this pool, he says this pool is too big, still not drained. Which pool are you talking about? Which pool of gold? I'm not sure what you're talking about. So long term, though, I think that this is good news for gold, because there are less central banks who want to be net sellers. And there are more governments and more central banks, especially ones outside of the United States, who want to be net buyers. Which pool? London physical? The London physical, a lot of physical gold has been drained out of London for a long time now. The export data that the gold community has been tracking, there has been a lot of gold that has been exported out of London for a long time. A good amount of it. There are other websites that keep track of this. I believe GATA, Gold Antitrust Action Committee, keeps track of this. So this is just interesting stuff here about the gold market. It doesn't mean that the gold price is going to $2,000 or per ounce in US dollars in the next couple months. I'm not going to make a crazy prediction like that, but it is good long term for gold. Gold will eventually go quite a bit higher. Because now, if this is true, and the central banks are going to stick to this, they are, at least the ones in Europe, are no longer net sellers of gold. They want to be net buyers. They want out of these agreements that force them to sell. And this is very similar to what happened to the end of the London gold pool. And a lot of the London gold pool was also on propaganda too. I believe I saw articles a long time ago, even newspaper clippings, that there was so much propaganda from the London Gold Pool, the governments involved in it, that they were running newspaper clippings telling people to not buy gold, that there wasn't inflation, buying gold is bad, buying gold can hurt the economy, stuff like that. So I believe there was newspaper ads. There's just not. I tried to find an article. I saw an article a long time ago with a clipping of it, with a a scan of the newspaper clipping, and then I couldn't find it again. Probably should have saved it. I own gold stocks. I already own gold stocks. I've owned it for a while. Physical metal is not an investment, though. Physical metal is just for insurance and wealth preservation. This is not financial advice. What about $80,000 an ounce anytime soon? Oh my God, guys. Talk to Bill Holter. Don't ask me that question. Pebbleman says, you love my live stream. Okay, great. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I actually was planning on doing another lecture, a mining stock education lecture, and then I got sent this news story. I found it. So I maybe will do another mining stock lecture tonight. We'll see. We'll see how tired I am. I was going to talk about the way that oil and natural gas companies and mining companies fool investors. And there's 3 big ways. Okay, well, that's enough for right now. This was just a short update. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.